Welcome, everybody. I'm Chris Epting. I'm an author and music journalist. And as you may know, for the last couple of months, I've been meeting with rock legend, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Dave Mason. He released last year Alone Together Again, which is, last year, I'm losing track of my years. It was the 50th anniversary. He reimagined and reinvented the album, his most classic album. It's available now at davemasonmusic.com. But we've been having this great kind of talk show format going on for a few months. So we've had guests like Brian Wheat from Tesla, John McPhee from the Doobie Brothers. But today we have a really special guest joining us at home from the Mason compound in Maui. Is Dave and his lovely wife, Winifred. Are you both there?
I don't know.
Aloha.
Are we both here?
And Star too.
I guess.
Well, we're going to get started. We're going to get to Star in a minute. This is interesting, you guys. I've had the pleasure, Dave, some of you know now, I've been working on his memoir for the last year or so. So I've had the distinct pleasure of being in your company, in your homes, a couple of times, and I've gotten to watch the dynamic of the two of you. Winifred, a lot of people on the road have met you because you kind of run things out there on the road with Dave. You're behind the house, front of the house, running the merch, running the meet and greet. So a lot of fans have met you. But I thought it'd be interesting because you really are part of Dave's collective musical experience, and he's part of your experience as well. So we thought it would be fun to bring you in from the shadows and put you front and center because you're a huge part of what Dave does these days. So thanks for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be here, Chris. Thank you so much, and thank you, David.
And
yes, we live and work together, So we're full. We're 24/7, basically, and that's how things work.
Well, this topic, this segment prompted a lot of questions. I want to get right to them. Some really good questions. It's one thing if we're talking musician to musician, but I think this relationship piece, it's obviously inspired some great questions. The first one, and by the way, everybody, be listening if you've submitted a question. I will be choosing two winners at the end of our half hour, give or take a few minutes episode, to pick two winners who are going to get signed merch packs from Dave Mason. So stay tuned for that. The first question is from Doug J., and he asks simply, how did you two get together? I don't know who wants to field that one, but I'll leave it to both of you.
I would like to start because David,
of course,
his memory is not exactly correct, but we
don't need any Prevagen yet.
The very first time I heard Dave Mason's name was I was living in Reno, Nevada, and there was a party going on downtown, and a friend of mine came up. I was married at the time, came up to me and my husband, and he said, do you want to meet Dave Mason? And I said, I don't care. I don't know who that is. My husband knew Dave Mason. So he said, oh, that sounds like fun. And so we sauntered over there to where David was holding court at the bar. And that's the first time I met him. And it was just a really interesting experience because I had never met someone who was so authentic and present, and then then he was in town for a show and he had invited us to the show. So we went to the show the next day, and then I was like, oh, I know those songs, I know all those songs, but I didn't know who he was.
Dave, how do you remember it?
Said, oh, are you going to tell me?
Yeah.
You're not going to fill in the details?
Well, why don't you go ahead, Dave? What do you remember about the moment?
No. Actually, they can get it all. They can get all that in the book.
All right. Well, it is going in the book. In fact, you and I just talked about this recently as we're putting your book together. Somebody, Ron DeBrugen asked, Dave, how are you doing with your memoir? And has Winifred started writing on her own story? So why don't you both handle that one?
Well, we are obviously, you and I are both, after being pestered for me to do a biography, whatever you want to call it, memoir. So, finally you came along and found somebody who was like, okay, I'll do it with this guy. So far, it's been great. So, our things are coming along pretty good, I think, correct?
I think our thing's coming along incredibly well, and I think fans are going to be blown away by the stories and the variety of voices that we're weaving into the book. I think it's going to be really special.
Only you know and I know. But as far as Winifred goes, obviously, she's got it. I mean, Winifred's been practicing yoga for a long time. And has her own really nice site for people at, especially things. She has some great exercises for stiff white guys. It's perfect. Real gentle, real easy. WinifredWilson.com. But yes, she's actually here. Actually, she's going to self-publish and put it out. But here's a little. I got a little thing to cover, and it's called Down Dog for Road Dogs. And I should let her explain, because we have to live together on a 45 by 8 by 12 foot space for a couple of months at a time out there.
Winifred, I want you to explain it, but before we get to that, what Dave just is referring to is Dave owns his own tour bus. So Dave and Winifred have a very unique touring experience where they can pick up, get on the road, and they're living their lives on the road. And obviously, yoga is part of Winifred's discipline, and she incorporates that on the road. I want to add, personally, when I was at your home last year on Maui, I got to read your book proposal, and I was knocked out by it. I mean, it was, as someone who doesn't know a lot about yoga, anything about yoga, what you wove together in terms of being on the road and how you can manage that kind of lifestyle and use that lifestyle to enhance the yoga, I thought was beautifully done, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. But Winifred, from your standpoint, how do you view your own book, and how does it kind of settle in with Dave's memoir? Because we talk often about how these books could maybe live together at some point.
Well, it does. When I left my day job, which was being a yoga teacher in Ojai, to join the tour, and went out there, I thought, well, that was the end of yoga for me. But and in practice, as we actually got out and went out on tour, I realized that no, yoga really never does leave you at all. It just takes a different form. And so I began dabbling and writing about it, because the teachings of yoga, they can be in your head and you can discuss them all the time, but until they really drop down into your body, into your heart, and into life where it makes a difference. And I discovered, for me personally, that what matters most of the yoga is what's happening off the mat. Mm-hmm. And so here I was in this life that was really difficult for me. The touring was very difficult in the beginning because it was such a different world. And when I began to get upset or frustrated or lonely or think I shouldn't be there and have self-doubt and complain because I'm tired, like all those things, I leaned into the teachings of yoga to pull me through. And not only did I find a life on the road that I loved, but I began to thrive through the practices. And, at the merch table and, meeting all the fans, like it just turned into I ended up having such a great time. And so Down Dogs for Road Dogs is
it's a journey.
A journal of how that came to be.
Mm-hmm. And we see that Star has entered the frame there.
She's running around.
Craving effect. She didn't want to be like
She's another part of your road experience as well, right?
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
That was part of the deal. He said, "You're coming out on the road." And I said, "Not without the dog."
There used to be two of them, but
yeah.
There's just
Hey, Lisa W. has a great question here. Since you're both writers, I'd love to hear you talk about how you structure your creativity, work time, and if those times can happen at all while on the small quarters of a tour bus.
Mine's on a whim. I have no discipline whatsoever. Winifred, on the other hand, is 180 degrees. She's very disciplined.
Well, when you're out on tour and you're on that small bus, it's really, David has a show to put on every night. So the space is all about him. And so I've sort of satellite around David and what he's doing and his life there. And, it sounds like it's a small space, but on the other hand, there you can separate yourself and to completely different parts of the bus. And often I would go and write. I would carve out time to write because that became a form of yoga for me, a way to connect and a way to explore, some of these deeper emotions I would be having while out on tour. Because you can't just jump off the bus. Right. I have to learn. I have to, for real, learn how to be in a relationship. Which was altogether a different story than when he was out on tour and I was living in Ojai, and we sort of had this relationship. But anyone can be lovely on a weekend-to-weekend basis, right? Sure. You're 24/7 and you're working and you have the stress of a tour. That's a whole different situation.
We'll get to the questions in a minute. I have one, though. Winifred, you mentioned you didn't know a lot about Dave when you first met. Being on the road, organizing the meet and greets, you're exposed to really hardcore fans who have been around for a long time. Have you learned a lot about Dave through those people being on the road?
I've learned so much. The biggest thing I think I've learned is the joy of music, of David's music, of being a big fan like that. I mean, the stories from these fans brought me to tears some nights. It was so heartwarming. I mean, life-changing. Here I am, come from a yoga teacher, right? And, it's healing and it's this and it's that and whatnot. But in my little mind before I went out on tour, I thought, yoga is such a healing modality, but I've come to learn that music is every bit as powerful as yoga. It is a yoga in its own way, actually. So yeah, it's really fun. And, watching the fans, they get so excited to meet him. And
well, it's interesting. I'm really anxious for the shows to resume. What I noticed at a Dave Mason show, that if you watch the audience during a show, you can learn a lot about him as well, because what you see, because of the range, Dave covers basically his whole career. During in the context of a show, and you see people reliving Traffic, you see them reliving the early '70s, you see them reliving Headkeeper, Let It Flow, all those experiences, and you watch them like become young again at the shows. And I think that's why a lot of us are really, really, anxious to get back into a theater and watch that guy next to you, play some more, because we miss those moments.
That's exactly right. In fact, that was one of the things I noticed. Like the people that come in the theater are transformed when they are more youthful. Their faces are brighter. Their eyes shine a little bit more. There's a little more pep in their step. They're more animated. It's remarkable. It's remarkable, the magic of what happens in that theater.
Here's a question from, let me see here, from Marilyn. Marilyn L. wanted to know, what are both the best, this is for both of you, the best and worst things about being on the road?
Well, for me, the best thing is being on stage, making music, making music with the guys, mm-hmm. Especially when it all clicks. I mean, there's, it's there's nothing else like it.
And what's the downside of being on the road?
Being on the road.
It's just the grind. Just the move, yeah. Winifred, what about for you?
See, at this point, listen, if you'd asked me that question 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it would have been, yeah, come on, let's go. Yeah, let's go. Oh.
Winifred, what about for you? What are the high points and low points being on the road?
Well, it's so much fun. It is amazing to travel the U.S. by bus and by music. When we land at venues, people are so excited, and we get great information where I can find my juice bars and my want to go shopping, or it's a great way to sightsee the world.
Yeah, I mean, she's. I mean, I probably see more. probably seem to know more about America than probably most Americans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, toured the whole entire place for the last 50 years. So for Winifred, it was like you got to take this girl from Highland Park, Dallas, and throw her around the road. And this is not just a job, and it's an adventure. Come on. But she's turns it into a sightseeing tour. Okay, the shows become incidental because it becomes we have to go here. No. Oh, we got to go see those cars that are buried in that field.
But the other thing too is to be in such close proximity to a true artist, for real, and to see that process and to see what it takes for real to give yourself in that way to your art. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal, and I never would have deepened my relationship to my husband in such a strong way had I not experienced love, and that is gold.
Great. Hey, Bob, Dave, for you, Bob Johansson wants to know, said, I just purchased your new album, Alone Together Again. Thank you, Bob. Will you be releasing a CD featuring Dave Mason and the Quarantines?
Yeah, well, just the situation, is he referring to just the Feeling All Right audio track, or is he talking about, an actual...
I'm thinking it sounds like a full-on album with members of the Doobie Brothers, Sammy Hagar, Mick Fleetwood.
Oh, getting all those guys together, and if COVID had not have happened, it would have, that probably would never have come together, okay? And and trying to get artists together to do something, a lot of times is like herding cats.
Yeah.
So, and everybody's got their own schedule, and everybody, it's just a one-off thing that where everybody had the time and was able to do it because it didn't require a lot of time out of anybody's life.
Well, it was, listen.
Do a whole thing. Now you got to those people have to put their careers on, because the point about it was a cachet of artists that all have their own cachet. And so, and so they've got their own careers going on. So I doubt it, but who knows?
Who thought we'd be sitting at home for a year, right? I mean, you never know anything. Right. Hey, here's a question. Since Star is in the frame here, Walter S. wants to know. He says, first of all, thank you for your music and concerts over the years. Onto your dog. What characteristics do you find in Malteses that are so lovable, and what do they do that drives you crazy?
Well, I mostly I probably grew up more of a cat lover. Mm-hmm. Independent. Dog is a kind of needy. This one especially, she's just a love dog. This is Gumby. I mean, she just there is nothing wrong with this dog. That's the deal.
She's 100%.
There's like nothing.
100%.
There's like zero to complain about with this dog. It's just all. It's Winifred. I mean, this dog is. When this dog lays down and goes to sleep, I mean, it's not like a lot of dogs where you make a move or do something and it's like, it's up. This thing is...
I witnessed it. I saw it firsthand.
She's attained the state that Winifred is trying to attain every time she's getting into her practice, in the perfect state. And she's Winifred's sweetheart and little dog, and... waits for her and basically she wins dog. Mine was the other one, but that one passed away.
Here's a question from Peter. For both of you, he says, I know you've probably met just about everyone you've wanted to, but is there an artist at this point you've yet to meet who's still around that you would like to meet?
I'd like to meet Eric Clapton.
Okay. Now, Dave, you've met Eric Clapton a couple of times. You played with Clapton and Derek and the Dominoes and in some other configurations as well.
Yeah.
Is there anybody you haven't met that you would like to?
Well, I'd have to think about it, and probably, I have to be really honest with you, probably would not be a musician.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
But I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, musician, that's your stock and trade, so maybe that's just not as special. Here's another question for you, Dave. Jeff W. asks, looks like you have an every woman right there, referring to Winifred. That's very sweet. My wife and I have participated in your VIP concerts twice, and I bought a signed RKS guitar, which I love. My question is, do you have a favorite guitar? I have a DVD of you playing a Taylor. P.S. I loved Apple Jam that you played on with George Harrison. Cool track. You have a favorite guitar, Dave? Electric or acoustic?
Well, I mean, on stage, Strats are my favorite. And I've been using my custom. I have a couple of, custom-made ones from Fender. So those are pretty much my go-to. I mean, I like Gibsons. I like the tone, and I'll use them in the studio a lot. My acoustics, I have a Taylor that I got it back when I was with Fleetwood Mac. And then long before that, Alvarez Yari made me a beautiful 12-string that I have.
You mentioned when you were with Fleetwood Mac. For those people that don't know you were in Fleetwood Mac, that will be an interesting chapter in the book to unpack, because you did have a Fleetwood Mac moment.
Well, that's how you get Mr. Fleetwood down off the hill to come chat with us. We'll do that.
Lynn wanted to know, Lynn L. Dave, what's the most complicated song featuring guitar, in your opinion, you've ever written?
Complicated. Heck. I know. I mean, I don't think of my stuff as complicated, because I'm not dexterous enough to be complicated.
Mm-hmm.
When I
asked that question, I was thinking too. I thought similarly. I mean, look at me to me is more expansive. That feels complex. It may not be for you. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's certainly more of an epic than a lot of other songs. Tighter songs you've written.
Yeah, I mean, the vamps and stuff. I mean, they're more. It's hard to explain. I play what I feel, and some things are, some licks I'll pick up at the same, but there's always going to be something different happening. That's why for me live, that's why I say I don't like per se doing acoustic shows, because I like to play guitar. That's for me the big fun of being up on stage.
Right.
It's not the singing of the songs, it's to be able to play.
Here's a question for both of you. Michael F. Dave, do you practice yoga? And Winifred, do you help Dave with his music? Do you get involved with the music at all?
I do not help David with his music.
All right, Dave, do you practice yoga?
In my mind.
That's not true. He does every now and then.
No, I do. She's got it. I've actually this whole time off, frankly, for me, I mean, I'm going to be 75 in May, and I've been doing this since I was 18 years old. So for me to have this time off is been a great opportunity. I mean, I've gone from, I've gone from 218 to 190 pounds, so I've got that. And just things that I need to take care of. I mean, there's a lot of mileage and wear and tear. I mean, I am a vet.
Right.
I'm a veteran of the rock and roll, and believe me, it all looks great up on there on the stage, and
touring is really hard on the body.
And the rest of it, it's
really, really, really hard on the body.
Mm-hmm.
All that travel and the time zones and the different pillows and the food and the lack of.
I was going to say, bodies are not meant for touring necessarily. Like it feels like a very unnatural thing to do, right?
We're gypsies,
Another question here. Actually, a couple of good questions. You mentioned being a veteran, Dave, of rock and roll. Tim Maddox wanted to know, how did you get involved with work festivals for veterans and actually all the veteran work you do? You do a lot of it. How did you first get involved doing charity work for vets?
My friend for years, Ted Knapp, who really runs it, our little, our small charity, which we are, all volunteer. We started with somebody else. I don't know. John E. Crash was before we met. Yeah, it's 15 or more years ago. With a gentleman named John E. Crash, we started doing things then. And then we branched off and started work festivals. So it's been for about 15 years. Rock Our Vets, which is now up and running, which is great. I mean, I'm happy to support these people. Well, I mean, we support all uniform services.
It's great. Terrific. Winifred, question for you from Dave M. Does Dave sing to you some of the time, all the time, or seldomly? If so, what songs? Do you feel he sings to you?
She says I scream at her all the time.
Dave M. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Every now, not often, but there's guitars all over the house. And he randomly picks up guitars often and noodles around on guitars and sometimes sings. And he's often in his studio. So he's not necessarily singing to me, but our house is very often filled with music, and it's lovely.
Mm-hmm. What about during shows? Do you ever get a sense he picks you out in a live setting?
Every now and then he does.
It's all for her.
Hey, Dave, you mentioned cats a second ago. There was a question. Christopher Hall on the live chat said, speaking of animals, isn't there a cat on the cover of It's Like You Never Left? You remember that?
Yeah.
So there's your maybe love of cats being represented on your album cover. Kathleen W. asked both of you, what was the first argument, if you remember, on the tour bus with the two of you?
I think I asked if we could stop at the smoothie.
We don't argue, do we?
We don't. That's true. That's the answer. We don't argue. No.
And if you believe that, please, come on. It's like, it's the boys and the girls, the cats and the dogs. Winifred and I are extreme opposites in a lot of things. And the thing is that I guess, and we, thunderstorms blow through as anybody, boys and the girls. But with us, it's gone. It's not, nothing's really carried around forever or lingers. And we figured, the thing is, we made our difference when we could make our differences work for us and not against us. Each other, we get a lot done.
And this tour bus scenario and this touring scenario, being in absolute proximity and close to my husband, you kind of have to work it out. You know what I'm saying? You have to, because of the nature of going on from place to place.
Oh, the road, yeah.
You have to ask some really deep questions to yourself, which is part of, it's really, in many ways, it's a journey of the spirit, really. Mm-hmm. Really, really. And I really can begin to finally understand when, they talk about, marriage as a sacred sacrament.
I think once you get back on the road, I think it would be interesting to document some of what you're talking about, this life of living on the road, what you're describing. I've always seen it as kind of a reality TV show. We kick that around a little bit. Maybe once things get back to normal, I think it might be fun to...
Might be a little too real.
No, that's good. That's fine. Combined with a little Charles Carroll,
Question, Dave, from Richard Millsap. I'm a drummer from Fort Worth, Texas. My favorite drummer is, without a doubt, Jim Gordon. I know he worked with you on Alone together, possibly Delaney and Bonnie. Not a whole lot of info about Jim available. Any specific memories of him come to mind working with Jim Gordon?
Well, not really. I mean, he was pretty he was somewhat of a really quiet kind of guy. But definitely in the top 5 best drummers I've ever played with.
Wow.
He was awesome. It's just, it's too bad that he was, what happened with him.
Yeah, for the lots of demons in his life, and he, I think is still incarcerated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But a brilliant drummer before all of that, and for you to call him out as top 5 with who you've played with is really saying something. Here's a personal question. Chuck B asked, "What is Dave's favorite restaurant for white Dover sole while in London?" Winifred told me the answer, but I want to see if that was accurate. So, Dave,
that's Chica's.
What? Got it? Okay.
Chica's, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
We went there when we were in London because. Because David loves it, and so we have to go eat there. But also, I wanted to see this place because he went there as a young boy, and I wanted to, picture what this must have been like. And it was this really elegant, beautiful. Anyway, it was awesome. I could see him as a little boy in his suspenders. With
wow.
His hair.
Oh, now she's getting maudlin.
Yeah, I'm looking here.
Cook it, by the way.
Oh yeah.
He makes it as good as anyone I've ever eaten.
Well, I'm the cook in the family. Winifred does all, and thank God, because we're she great cleaning up. Me, this is Felix Unger, and I'm
Oscar Madison.
And I'm Oscar Madison. Exactly.
But I want to say one thing. I can vouch for your cooking skills, Mr. Mason, because I was the recipient of many meals of waking up in the morning and having you, and you are a magnificent cook, and I do miss those days. Couple of more questions here before we wrap up. Dave, Ken Hill wants to know, you've shared showing Jimmy along the Watchtower playing acoustic on that recording. Any other memorable artist or two or recordings you've done that you don't get credit for that we may not know about? I mean, you've made some of the great all-time cameos, whether it's the Beatles, Stones, Paul McCartney. Is there a session that maybe we don't know that much about that you sat in on that comes to mind?
Well, a couple that come to mind that don't really come up that much, I guess. I mean, Phoebe Snow, I played with Phoebe.
Mm-hmm.
Playing the guitar, the lead guitar stuff on Military Madness, Ray Nash.
A great one. That's a great one. And then finally,
some others I can't remember.
Well, I mean, again, we could probably do a book just on your guest appearances and things.
You'll find out. See? You'll get that.
Winifred, one more question for you. Do you consider yourself Dave's muse? Do you ever feel like you're his creative muse, being with him as much as you are on the road and at home and everything?
No. Not so much. No, not so much. No, he is the real deal artistically, and he's creative in his own right, for sure. But I do feel like I like to be a true support through the tour, allows him to be even more creative out there because he doesn't have to worry about, he doesn't have to worry about a lot of the details of daily living, returning this call or scheduling this interview or this, that, and the other. So it sort of frees him up to be the creative genius that he is.
Well, I want to do this right now, everybody. I want to thank everybody, first of all, for their questions, and let the announcement be Peter Tanico, and hang on one sec, and Marilyn L. You are our 2 winners today. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go into the comment section. Hopefully you're listening right now. Put your email address in the comments. We will grab those. And then we're going to ask Mr. Mason what he is holding up to camera right now. What do you have there, Dave?
off the tree in the back garden.
Looks like is it a mango?
Best mangoes. These are, I can't even describe.
Well, you've got coconuts back there too, right?
No.
Yes. Coconut palms. Yes.
Do we? Oh, yeah. Do we?
Yes.
Oh, no. Oh, they're all over the place. But these mangoes, crazy.
Well, listen, here's the deal. What I'm thinking before we wrap up here, maybe there's a little cooking show on the road. Maybe there's something to sort of, draw out some of these great home experiences. But listen, I want to thank both of you. I think you're, in the scope of music, you're a fascinating couple because you've got your own tour bus. You're able to take your environment from home. Winifred, you're an integral part of what makes Dave Mason today. And, as a researcher and writing with Dave his memoir, I know a lot of his personal experiences, and I know what you occupy in his life as the anchor, longest term, and really a key part of his life. So it's again, you're a great part of his story, just as he is of yours. And let's just get back on the road. Let's let people hear the music. Let people meet Winifred. And right now, everybody go to Dave Mason. I'm going to let you guys close it, but I want everybody to go check out Alone Together again. DaveMasonMusic.com. It's it's a phenomenal record. Dave, maybe you can answer. Somebody else asked a question about the vinyl, the colored vinyl, when that might be available.
It's I believe, due on the 26th of this month.
Oh, wow. Great.
I believe, through Shelter BMG.
Keep one for me, please.
I'm sure. Absolutely.
Are you coming over?
Yes. We'll talk offline.
Okay.
Well, listen, I'm going to say goodbye, but Dave, I would like you and Winifred to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for your questions. I will give it to the Masons right now to usher us out of this wonderful next chat in our series here. Take it away, Masons.
Yeah, well, thanks to everybody again for tuning in, and just this is very important. I mean, obviously, very important to keep things that you mostly don't see when I'm out there, but keeping it together and helping me for sure. Don't forget, those of you may want to start trying something. Trust me, go to winifredwilson.com. There are lessons up there. There's some very cool stuff. And check it out. And don't forget, she's coming with this book, which you ladies out there or wherever. Actually, for guys, it's just a great read. Because I normally don't like, I have to say, I'm being bigoted now, female authors. But this is good. Winifred, go ahead, baby.
Chris, thank you so much for hosting us. Katie Fox of Blooming Footprint, thank you so much. And Shelter Music, and to all the fans, that has made it just part of our family and part of the fun. And we can't wait to see you soon again out there. Thank you so much.
Say goodbye. Say bye.
See you on the road.
You know and I know. You know and I know. Only you know.